do deserve the majority of our attention today. You can tackle all your NFL action, make your shots in the NBA, and cash your bets in Major League Baseball on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL and NBA all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to join today. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and NBA. Guys, the Cavs are 13-0. They have a chance to go 14-0 tonight against the Chicago Bulls. But are they getting enough national attention for this historic start to the season? They're one of just 6 teams ever to start 13-0. But are enough people talking about what the Cavs have done in the first 3 weeks of the year?
It's funny. Mike asked me that we were talking about today's show yesterday. After the show yesterday, and Mike asked me this question, or you may have actually asked me before the show yesterday, this question, and I said to him, I don't really watch ESPN anymore.
You know what, Bull? It's so funny.
It's a game.
Here's what I said. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't either.
Yeah. I used to DVR Around the Horn and Pardon the Interruption every day.
Those were the must-watch
I would watch
shows.
Cold Pizza. I would watch Sports Center. Like, ESPN was just on all the time.
Yeah.
Now, I never watch it except for a game.
Let me ask you this, Bull, and Mike, I think you'd be a good test case for this. I noticed that as I got older, sports played a much, much smaller role in my life.
Yeah, definitely.
You have kids.
Yeah.
They have plays. You have things that are going on.
Yeah.
And even when I worked there and I had to stay up on what was going on with everything, I still watched, but I think 80% of my free time when I was in college, ESPN was on the television. That's all I had on. I never turned the channel. And I think as we age, we kind of put sports in its proper perspective. It's not the end-all, be-all.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, Mike, I think you're probably on the cusp of that. You're not married. You still play pickup basketball. You do fun things that married old guys really don't do. How much is ESPN a part of your life? And how has it changed from the few years ago when you were in college?
I watch it when I'm eating. I can't start an episode without finishing it.
Oh, really?
Yesterday, I'm very. If I start something, I have to finish
it
in the moment. So if I have 20 minutes, I'm just turning on SportsCenter to watch whatever's on for 20 minutes because I want to start an episode of a documentary or an hour-long TV show. But I used to wake up every morning and watch SportsCenter, every morning, even until I was probably 25.
Do you get a sense that that's the way college kids are living their lives today?
Well, there's a big part of this that we're missing.
Social media.
Well, absolutely.
Digital,
So, I love Dan Orlovsky. I think he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I don't have to watch
You can get all his clips right on your phone.
I'll get all his clips on my phone.
I agree.
So I don't have to sit there and watch the whole show. I'll just go to exactly what I want.
I actually watched, because Mike had asked me this question, I decided I'm going to watch one ESPN show tomorrow, or yesterday. So I watched Pardon the Interruption. And their only topic involving the Cavs was the second story. Their lead story was the Thursday night football game.
Right.
Their second story was, what is the biggest story last night in the NBA? Is it LeBron's third straight triple-double, Wemby scoring 50, Giannis scoring whatever he scored, almost 60.
57.
Or the Cavs
what did
winning
they decide
13
was
in a
the
row.
biggest story?
They both, first of all, they wasted 2/3 of that segment being annoyed. This was such an old man on my lawn on the lawn thing.
They can be that way.
They were annoyed. And I understand. I find this annoying too, but I wouldn't have wasted the whole segment on it. But they were annoyed that people keep saying Wemby's the youngest guy to do this. Because guys can come out out of high school now, or 1 year out when you couldn't. But they ended up talking about Wemby the whole time.
So that was pretty much
the Cavs didn't even get a mention.
And both, I told you this on the call this morning.
Yeah.
On SportsCenter, the night after that happened, so it would have been yesterday.
Yeah.
They had three basketball topics in the A block. They went LeBron triple-double, Wemby 50, then the Cavs going 13-0.
Wow. So there is, I've said this before, there is an absolute East Coast bias inside the building at ESPN, 1,000%. It's because everybody that is in management is a Yankee fan or a Red Sox fan. They're all East Coast based. Most of them went to school at Syracuse. Most of them are from New York or Massachusetts. And when they're driving these morning meetings, they're in their own silo. God, the Yankees won 6 in a row. We got to lead with that. Yeah, but what about the no-hitter that was
but it does seem in terms of football that Dallas gets the most.
Yes. Well, football is a little
and
different.
Basketball is mostly the Lakers are number one, especially with LeBron there.
No, I agree with that.
But yes, certainly there is a New York bias.
I'll even switch it to say that it's a coastal bias now.
Yes, yeah.
I think that the coastal, and look, that's the population bases, and these executives have access to information that all the worker bee anchors didn't.
Right.
They can look at and see where the numbers are coming from. And even though, and I'm making these numbers up, even though maybe 27% of the Cleveland AD, and Cleveland is one of the biggest ESPN supporters. They were when I was there. I don't know if that has changed. So you might have 27% of men that are available to watch TV that are watching ESPN. That number is still tiny compared to the 4% of people in New York that are watching.
Right, or LA.
So it's a numbers game. Yeah. And they used to tell us all the time, we're about gathering viewers. And we know if we lead Cowboys, we're safe. We know if we lead LeBron or anything East Coast, we're safe. So, there's an absolute bias, but I get it.
I think they're losing. I think they lost their eye. Like, they lost their eye in the pulse of what it is. Like probably 5 or 6 years ago, people realized that YouTube was it. Like, you gotta think about it. Like, I could go on YouTube, right? And I could search out specifically what I want, right? And I could find local, I could find it pinpoint, I could find somebody that only talks about what I care about. And if I want to watch the national stuff, all I got to do is watch the highlights. I could watch the highlights of a football game in 15 minutes. It shows me all the plays, and I'm informed. Yeah. Basketball is even better. 9 plays, the best plays, and I'm informed. And what people, and I was just talking to a buddy of mine, I said what Pat McAfee and other people showed big execs were that it's not necessarily the big conglomerate, the 24 hours, that people are tuning into now. People are tuning in to off kilter, off messaging that, and it's part of, it's almost part of the bigger, they talk about the red pill society, right? They talk about how people with political correctness and people just want to go search out and people call it for what it is. So you see places like Barstool, you see places like Pat McAfee.
Throw this show in there. And this show's part of that.
This is part of, because look, it's crazy because I was just saying to my buddy, I said, look, I watched something, no disrespect to nobody out there. Like, I watched a show. It was Nathan Zegura and it was Joe Thomas, right? And they were talking to Browns. They had Browns people on there. And I looked at the views, and I'm like, dog, that's the Browns. They own the content. You got Joe Thomas on, but it's not doing crazy numbers. And what I realized is that people want to talk about it in an unfiltered,
do you think it's establishment versus
the
Rebels,
the
Renegades?
100%.
That was going on as I was leaving
100%,
ESPN. There were major internal discussions. If you remember, they went into business with Barstool for one show.
Yeah.
One show.
Yeah.
And Disney executives saw it and they're like, oh, that's not it. That's not what we're about. That's not our brand.
How did they not know that going in?
Well, here's the problem. So sometimes when the left hand doesn't talk to the right hand, there were executives inside ESPN that they were well aware of this movement, let's call it that was outside the establishment that was coming. And this was still the cusp of it. And they felt, well, we want to be relevant and on the cutting edge, so let's go get these guys. What derailed it were the suits in Burbank that looked at that and said, that doesn't align with our core values.
Yeah, right.
Well, now Pat McAfee, and this is what's stunning, now Pat McAfee's on there dropping F-bombs.
Yeah.
Right,
so what happened was, one of the suits that was, I think, protecting the old way, I won't say his name. I've mentioned his name on the show before. Yeah. He was my neighbor. I knew him very well. He got into a pissing match with Pat McAfee. Guess who won?
Yeah.
Pat McAfee.
And the executive is gone. This was a 30-year, well-respected executive, and
Pat put
won.
him on blast on the air.
Pat mentioned him by name on the air, which, by the way, 5 years earlier was a fireable effect. You wouldn't have finished your show.
By the
You
way,
wouldn't have been able to clean out your desk. Security would have done it for you.
If
now that executive is gone, and the outside the establishment guy is still running things.
For the next cycle, I suggested to all politicians, you show up at Pat McAfee's show. I'm not lying to you. I'm not lying to you. Pull up. That's who people are listening to.
That's it. That is it.
Most people don't want like this old school lame, boring takes from guys who work for the team and are just going to tell you.
Don't work like
No,
that.
they do want.
Fake and rosy.
You know what they want? Guys sitting. Barstool was the perfect name.
Yeah.
And they were the ones that really
Right.
cracked the code. And
They
now
just
there's a
hired
lot
John
of
Gruden,
people.
by the way.
I know they did. And I saw his first
He was
appearance.
awesome yesterday.
And isn't
I'll be
he the
watching.
perfect? He is an outcast from the establishment NFL.
Yeah.
Now he's going to be a star on Barstool Sports, and the NFL will hate every second of that. By
And
the way.
speaking of stars, we got our next guest ready, who is a star
Speaking
in
of the
NBA
establishment.
world.